Ladies and gentlemen and organizers of this meeting, I'm very happy to be with you here this morning. For a number of reasons, I like the project and the optimism that comes with it, but I also like the place. And the Global Marshall Plan initiative, with which I'm working now for more than 10 years, had a lot of meetings here in this place. Now, I like about the work of the team the optimism. But let me be frank, I'm not certain whether there is a reason for so much optimism. The only point is, it wouldn't help if you would sit here sad and be pessimistic and say it's all a disaster and what a bad situation. It wouldn't help. So it is better for smiling if you're optimistic, and it helps if you believe Mohammed Yunus when he says, if you want to achieve something and write it down, you can and will achieve it. Of course, this sentence is totally nonsense. In particular, if one guy writes on his paper he wants to achieve something and the other guy writes on his paper that he exactly wants that this is not achieved, then certainly one of the two will not achieve what he wants to achieve, and probably both will not make it, and they can write down as much as they want. It will not help. So it is really, the idea of Yunus is empower a person, and empowered people might do something. And so it's better to empower them than to frustrate them. But it's also very important not to believe anything told you. And now take progress. I listened to what 4 guys said about progress. And at least from my language understanding, they very much missed the word progress. They told nice stories, but they had hardly much to do with progress. If you come from a language point of view and talk about progress, you have 2 options. One is you can identify progress just with moving forward. So it means moving through time, you move forward. Then progress as a concept is essentially a tautology. It has no meaning at all, except that it goes forward. Then it makes also no sense to talk about true progress, because it goes forward truly. Yeah. So most people combine with progress a kind of annotation of that it is positive. Then progress would mean while wandering through time, things improve. And then you can also talk about true progress in the sense that maybe there is fake progress and true progress. And fake progress would be that somebody wants you to believe there is progress, while in reality there is no progress, at least not concerning what you think is positive. Of course, the biggest problem is again to come to an agreement about what is positive. And this is really a tough issue, because we have the impossibility theorem of Arrow's theorem. It's the theorem about the dictator, and it talks about the principal ability to come to an agreement among groups about what is preferable to something else. And the theorem is a very cruel theorem. It says essentially there is no algorithmic methodology by which you can aggregate the preferences of individuals in a consistent way to a group preference, except you choose a dictator and do what the dictator tells you to do. So there's one solution as a dictator, but most people don't want a dictator. But if you don't choose a dictator, you have a systematic principal problem in aggregation, which means it is very difficult for groups to come to any joint statement about what is more preferable to something else. Now, this is the point where this fake progress plays a big role, and our moderator chose a wonderful example by trying to make us believe that we have an improvement concerning massive absolute poverty by 50%. Now, I just finished a paper on that because it is one of the Millennium Development Goals. It is goal number 1. And the Global Marshall Plan Initiative has this goal as its number 1 goal. So we spent a lot of time with that issue. And now the 15 years are over, and politics tries to explain people that we did progress. But believe me, it's all tricks, it's all words, it's all statistics, but it's using statistics for manipulation purposes. That means you didn't achieve what you wanted to achieve, but you manipulate the numbers in a way that eventually you can say we did it. Now we did nothing. We have 1 billion people that are hungry, and there is a so-called hidden hunger, which is a situation where you have enough calories, but you miss essential ingredients in food which are needed for a full development of your brain and body. And we have another billion of people which suffer under hidden hunger. The other problem is that usually progress is measured relative to the number of people. Now, if you go into the 17th century, we had 700 million people worldwide, and today we have 7 billion. Today we have at least 1/7 that has hunger. In the 17th century have been 2/7. But 2/7 of 700 is 200 million, while now 1/7 of 7 billion is 1 billion. So in absolute numbers, in 1700, 200 million people were hungry. Today, in absolute numbers, is 5 times as much. Now, of course, the question is that now progress? If you think hunger is a concept of a relative quality, then you can say this is progress. We achieved by factor 50%. Relatively betrachtet, half as many. But if you think hunger is an individual problem, and it does not help a hungry person if relatively spoken there is less hungry person than before, but 5 times as much, then of course we increased hunger instead of decreasing it. I think hunger is a very individual thing, and it doesn't help if relatively spoken there is anything reduced. If absolutely spoken it is increased. I think we have more hunger, but this was not the hard part of it. The hard part is the concept of absolute poverty. And the real yardstick to influence public opinion is the question, how do you define absolute poverty? Or how do you define that somebody is a poor guy? And the most important issue is, as a mathematician, do you go for a concept of poverty that is related to average income? Or do you go with a concept that is related to median income? Now, of course, if you go for average income and you increase total income by number 10, like 10 times as much income, then average income also would go up by 10 times. And if poverty is related to average income, then the borderline would also move up if the total income moves up. Now, if you go for the medium is where half the people have more and half have less. Now, if you have 10 times as much as before, but give everything to the half that has more, then still the point where half of the people have more and half have less is unchanged, even if you have 10 times as many income as before. because you just give everything to the rich part. And that is actually what happens. We change to the medium. We give all the increase to half of the global population. And this half of the population then wants to explain the others that we had progress. Yeah, but the trick in the progress is only that we shifted from average to medium to the advantage of those beyond average. But the point is, in all these debates that is not even discussed, and except mathematicians, nobody knows the difference between average and medium. Nobody knows it, yeah? So the manipulation is always with the concepts, and I mean, the president of the university said the same, go into the words. Don't believe everything. Start from the words. Try to think what the words mean, and try to think what other people might want you to believe for purposes they follow. Now I give you my understanding of true progress, and it is an understanding we have in the Global Marshall Plan initiative and in the Club of Rome. We would say we come on the one hand from the dignity of people, which is a very subjective state. Do you have a decent life in dignity? And we would like to see as a progress that hopefully at some time, as also Mohamed Yunus sees it, there is nobody who would say my dignity is not fulfilled. Certainly nobody who has not enough to eat. So Yunus say we can put poverty into a museum. I think yes, we could. And for me, that would be a real progress. At the end, there is nobody that doesn't have enough to eat, and there is no child that has to go in a kind of slave-type working situation. And if we could achieve that, I would say yes, that is a real progress. And if we would make it that we don't destroy our environment, I would think if we really make that would be a progress. And even having the theorem of arrows, I would assume that at least 80% of humankind would say yes, this is something we would like, and this would be a real progress. And I assume that this project here also had something like this in mind, to really get rid of a number of very ugly situations and asking, can that be done? Now, it's always a question, are you an optimist or are you a pessimist? I come just back from Nepal, and I spent 2.5 weeks in a number of projects. I'm long involved with that country, and the issues concern the education system in Nepal. It concerns the population issue, the mother and child, reproductive health, family planning topics. And maybe the most challenging issue is water in the Kathmandu Valley, because the capital is in a valley that is, in a sense, seen for water, a part of Nepal of itself. It has its own valley, but the water in the valley is not enough. They have enormous problems, in particular because the town is growing. And I hardly ever in my life saw such ugly rivers than the rivers in Kathmandu, even though they're holy. And the Hindi burned the dead people there and put the ash into the river. But I think it's an offense to the ash to have to go into that river. I never saw such a garbage site. And the project we are working on is a dream of wonderful rivers like we have in Germany. Rivers where you could swim in, where you have fish in, where you have a promenade to jog, where you have trees. Yeah, we call that project Mission Impossible. Yeah? It's very important to understand the mindset. Yeah? The project is Mission Impossible, and we had to deal with people that believed that they only had to do campaigns to clean the river. And they did many campaigns, but all the campaigns, of course, didn't help, because the river is the place for garbage in. So in Munich, you have a responsible agency of the town, and they do everything with your waste. But there, the river bank is the place to deposit your waste. It's completely not understandable for us. So if you want to do Mission Impossible, you have to do the water system from the mountains down to the river. And of course you have to do a non-waste policy for water used. It has to be treated before it goes back. And then you need a waste policy for the town. And you need waste disposal places, and you need politics to... So this is a project. Okay, I told myself I want to see one thing in my life. And there's not so many years to come. But maybe in 20 years I want to see the confluence of the two rivers in Kathmandu, wonderful clean rivers with a wonderful bridge and with a very good way to jog, and I want to jog there. So that, for me, is something that motivates me, and I think it can be done. So in a sense, this is much easier than solving the poverty problems on the world. That is much, much harder, because there is so many vested interests that do not want the problem to be solved. I think it's very important to understand that while we sit here and develop positive visions, there is many people that would sit here with us to develop positive visions only with the aim to never make it. The aim is not to get a positive vision, it is to prevent it from coming by joining the process. So the hardest part in doing it is very often those that are in the game but have something completely different in mind but would never say it. They have a different agenda. They have an agenda of an elite, two-class society, and for them, the biggest part of the people, in a sense, is guilty for the situation they are in, and they would never have the idea that it is a system that creates the misery, and that they, as the exponents of that system, are very much the reason for the problems. And they would always try to build philosophies by which somebody who really puts effort, he can make it. Yeah? They wouldn't want a university like the one in Munich, which is financed by the state. They think only private university, only the private. In Nepal, the private school system, the private, yeah, but private means the parents have to pay. And if you're a child whose parents cannot pay, then from the very start, you don't have a fair chance. Of course, an education system that primarily depends on parents to be able to pay is, from the point of view of the parents, a wonderful machinery to guarantee that their children will make it. And of course they will create philosophies by which the one who makes it made it because he was devoted and put all energy into it. But what they do not want is a competition between 100% of children where other children have the same chance than their children. As parents, it is clear they want their parents to be successful, their children, even if it means the others shouldn't have a fair chance. So the co-financing of the socially weaker part is an important element if you want to be inclusive, and inclusive meaning that everybody has a chance. So yes, I think a lot can be done. One has to be very careful. One has to put a lot of energy in it. It can work and it can go wrong. And I finish with the picture of the world that motivates me most. And it has to do with Sisyphus. And it is something you have to do it every day. You have to try it every day. You have to try it even if the chances are not so good. Yeah, I would go with Professor Hahn and say, you count on serendipity. You have all your brains open to see the chance. You cannot influence the wind, but you can be very intelligent in using the wind as it comes. And if the wind comes from the wrong direction, maybe you invent a kind of crossing technology to go against the wind. Use your brain, be very intelligent, do it every day. And as Sisyphus did, every day the ball went down again and he did it the next time. Yeah? Camus has a wonderful statement on that in his book. He says, il faut s'imaginer Sisyphe heureux. Also man muss sich den Sisyphus, you have to imagine Sisyphus to be happy. And if you think it through, there is one advantage with Sisyphus. As long as he rolls up the ball every day, he is obviously still existing. And if he rolls up the ball every day, he must obviously still be fit. And he is obviously alive and he has something to do. So he's not sitting around and doesn't know which telephone program, which television program to study. No, he has a job. He has a job, he is occupied, and at least he has a vision and he tries every day. And if you see it right, it is not so bad. Yeah? I try to understand what a mother of 2 or 3 small children feels. Yeah? I looked very much into mothers that very devotedly brought up many children. In Nepal, I had just the case of a mother that did it with 9 children under extreme ugly circumstances in a very poor country. The first child disabled, the 8 others made it all to a university in such a poor country. Such a poor woman. She made it with all her children. And I think every day she was Sisyphus. And every day she had with all those children, all those problems, and she did it. And the most wonderful point was, she's now maybe 75. She looks so inspiring. She looks so intelligent. She looks so warm. She looks beautiful, but beautiful in the sense of the message that comes out of her eye, this message of determination to make it with her family, with her children, a very big success in life, coming from the devotion of one person being a Sisyphus. And yes, if I can tell you something for your life, to the degree you have to be a Sisyphus, be one and be happy doing it. Thank you.